Now we move on to our next panel discussion of the day, titled Marketing in a Cookieless World. In this session, the panelists will discuss how digital advertising is expected to change in the coming time.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, are we audible? Thank you for your time today. I think our topic is the most talked about topic in today's world. The cookie is crumbling. The cookie jar is getting empty. Now, in this, I would like to ask my panelists, how is it really going to impact the journey that we are having today? What data losses we are expecting this new age?
It's always tough to be in a panel sitting right before lunch. So, talking about fundamentals, we as marketers are so used to using third-party cookies, offering hyper-localized and very personalized, delivering personalized ads and experiences to our consumers. We'll have to introspect on a whole lot of journeys that we'll have to rethink. I think one of the biggest things and challenges that we'll have to solve for is how do we utilize first-party data, be more intelligent about what kind of analytics we overlay on it, and then relook at some of the journeys and the data that we are collecting of the visitor traffic that we get, and reimagine those journeys so that they are easy for the consumers who come in. It's a win-win for both of us, the consumers who come in on the website as well as us who collect the data, and also realize that there has to be a good balance between what we offer as value versus what consumer offers as data. So I think that will have to be reimagined in a manner which we can't fathom right now, but perhaps once we go through a cookieless world and that world becomes to be a reality in next year onwards, then we'll have to really put our socks up and think on how we reimagine this interaction that goes on.
Gaurav, and maybe others, maybe Rushabh, if you can talk about what are the losses that we are going to expect in the data collection or the data attributes of consumers in the new world, and then we'll come to what solutions we have to be prepared with. So if you can talk.
Yeah, so I think first of all, almost afternoon, so good morning. But from a loss perspective, I think the biggest hit that marketers or brands will take is understanding the user behavior online. Interest levels, etc., can still be garnered various aspects, but the online user behavior, the journeys that the user goes through, which we have visibility right now that, okay, the user goes from here to here, he does this, not just on our website because that's first party data, I can track all of that. But from the third party, that is where we get the bulk of our information. That is going to be a big blow for marketers. And to compensate that, there are, I'm sure we'll talk about that in the coming time, but it's that loss which is there. Obviously, retargeting is going to get a big hit. Retargeting typically works most on the third-party data, so retargeting is going to be a challenge. Personalization, which we all talk about, that it's a hyper-personalized. Even he mentioned about it, that it's a hyper-personalized journey that we are looking at. Without that data, how do I personalize?
I think hyper-personalization is much more hyped. And Abraham, in your world, how is it going to impact? Because sometimes it gets very spooky for the consumers that so much about them across devices, across domains, across websites. So how is it really going to impact your set of consumers?
Thank you for that question. I think it's very important. I think in a way, two ways to look at it. One is, with no disrespect meant to the world of cookies that we live in today, but I was telling my team it's a bit like the way we got used to plastic, right? Versus earlier using brown bags as what we used to carry around when we did shopping. I think it was so easy to get used to plastic, and now we know we're making that shift back to brown bags and paper bags.
In fact, we were just talking that people have stopped thinking of cookies as cookies.
Absolutely.
So
I think hopefully we'll get back to thinking of cookies in the more wholesome, tasty way we used to. And I think in a way it's full circle back for marketers, especially older marketers. In a way, I'm quite perked up with this because I think it's really going back to the building of classical brands, right? As we knew it. It is about building equity. It's about long-term value. It's about building relationships. It's about building conversations. It's about understanding the customer. Also understanding, in a way, again, no disrespect meant. I think we got to use extend the plastic analogy, if you will. I think we got used to eavesdropping, to your point, right? And I think it's time to go back to conversations and understand each time because I think to some extent, maybe we got used to it so much that it was spooky. And I think the more mature digital customer, it was beginning to get worried, which is why this whole pushback happened, right? None of this would have happened unless the customers were becoming more resistant to being followed and eavesdropped as much as we marketers, we created that environment. So let's face it. And I think in a way it's going back to doing what we were doing. And I think we need to do it better. Strong brands and older brands have done it. I think the marketers of today who've got used to the convenience of plastic/cookies, I think we'll have to go back to start using our own customers' relationships better, building on them, building communities of existing customers, getting referrals and stuff like that so that consent becomes key and we build those conversations and information again, keeping in line the evolving needs of the customer. So I think that's where we are headed.
Rashid, what is your point of view on this?
So most of the information that cookies deliver is about identifying behavior and patterns to build various persona sets to be able to target more effectively, specifically for remarketing, like it's already been brought up. Getting out of that will, like it has been pointed out already, is going to require strategies to be re-envisioned altogether. It is going to require broader communication, which are going to be delivering on larger aspects of consumer wants. And it is going to then attract only those type of consumers who want to interact with the particular brand or a service or product. And then the brand's objectives will also need to change accordingly. So from where we wanted to transact more efficiently, it is going to have to become into engaging, holding hands, and then bringing them into a first-party data ecosystem so that that interaction can continue.
I think first-party data, and we've been hearing about this for some time now, is going to be the solution, and more intelligent scoring engines, understanding your consumers is going to be important and critical. So how prepared are you? And maybe I can start, Gaurav, with you because you're sitting on a huge amount of data. And I understand that, you don't consider it like that. But government has the largest set of consumer data with you. And with this DPDP coming into picture, what challenges would you face and how prepared are you to take that journey?
Thanks. Let me first clarify. We don't consider the data that we, especially nationally critical databases that we sit on, ours. So we do not indulge in any such data analytics on it. Okay. To answer your question, how prepared are we? A marketer is always underprepared. So I would say we were underprepared. But having said that, like one of the panelists said, we have to be ready with our strategy on what's coming out to be next. One thing that I was thinking about when this discussion was happening is, as we have seen the rise of digital marketing, we've forgotten how critical a great creative plays a role. We've forgotten the old principles. I mean, in our daily jobs, not really forgotten as a marketer, but how critical some of these aspects of advertising and reach out. We put too much impetus on how we are reaching out rather than some of the pieces of information that we are sending out. So I think one of the many ways to get prepared is to relook at some of the touch points that we have created in our journeys. In a B2B case, it would be some of the emails that we shoot out. In a B2C case, it was the kind of creative material and the quality of conversation that you're having. So that is one. Let's start from there. Let's start from the consumer and the customer. On the tech side, which is on the organization side, I think while I may use jargons like having a great CDP system and having a great CRM system and an AI-driven bot, perhaps, but we have to think simplistically. Today, we are so used to, as human behavior, we are so used to reading stuff. I think that's going to change dramatically in the next 2 years when this cookie-less world comes in. We are seeing the rise of AI. We are seeing the rise of conversation. Even government initiatives like Bhashini, which translate a simple English language or a Hindi language into 130 languages of India. All of these are going to have large impacts and very wide-scale impacts. So we have to consider such high-quality tech that's coming out of India and some of these system players who offer such kind of intelligent solutions in a very human native form rather than a system native form. So I think these are some of the inputs that will make for a great strategy in order to enrich some of our interactions with our consumers. And that is perhaps how we will get ready. But to go back to your question, we will always be underprepared until the rubber hits the road.
Abraham, how prepared are you? Because in your case, I think you have a good amount of your target consumers' data sitting with you. Where do they travel? How do they travel? How much do they spend? So what are you doing to create your DPDP compliant first party data and the text that you're using?
Two parts. I think we're cognizant of the fact that the segment we service, at least our core segments, actually a very, very small fraction of India's demography. If you look at the percentage of India's population that can afford a discretionary international holiday even once a year, it's a very, very small fraction. So we're cognizant of it, and therefore that places two challenges on us. One is you have to ensure great relationships and great service, because you are effectively, even if the volume of that, whatever small percentage keeps growing, as it will in a growing economy like India, the fact that this is a very well connected, very well socially networked set of customers means that you have to constantly ensure great service to these customers to ensure that the brand equity is not affected. Also, while we have 140 plus years of customer data, we have to be cognizant of the fact that there's generational shifts, economic power moving from one generation to another. And in the youngest demography in the world, which we are living in, I think the shift has been dramatic in terms of the economic thing. Even before economic power shifts, the decision-making when it comes to holidays has moved to the younger generation, as all of us, all parents will attest to. The decision is very often not in their hands, right? So I think, and it's coming from the age group that's consuming most digital media. I think where we are going to is really about using our traditional business model, which is built on human interface, and where we supplemented or complemented with a technological capability, which historically was always seen as, it's asset heavy, pure online is going to be more efficient. I think we've actually found it is actually the sweet spot when you're dealing in a market like India, because it's about digital capability for discovery and contact, and it's about conversations and persuasion for conversion, because these are once in a year, most often, high value, high involvement, family decisions. Very rarely are they taken on the spur of the moment, one person sitting on a device or a computer. So I think this hybrid capability where we're able to connect humans at scale and real time via video chats and video calls and stuff like that, or even schedule a video call, A, are extending physical capability, and B, trying to create a hybrid sweet spot where we're bringing physical quality interface with digital scale and efficiency. And I think, to my mind, that's really where it's going to be at, even for existing customers, recognizing that they are evolving at an incredible speed. We talk about digital adoption and how the pandemic accelerated non-digital customers to digital in the space of a few months. because they were forced to. It's amazing how much a person can change their holiday preference from one year to the next. We don't know what influences went into it, the kids, social media, I don't know, a Korean OTT program, it could be anything. But suddenly there is none of what they wanted, right? Vegetarian may stay vegetarian, but that's pretty much it. Even their willingness to spend after pandemic, we found has increased dramatically. I think the realization that the world is not always going to be free to travel, it can be taken away. Life is short, make the most of it. I think a lot of that has played into it. And I think it's going to be constantly about restarting conversations, re-engaging each time. And to your question on what the new rules are going to bring in terms of this thing is that each time we'll have to get consent again, because having completed the transaction they first inquired, as per the new rules, you're not supposed to use the data again, right? So in a sense, I think we'll have to reimagine a lot of it, though of course the learning and our ability to sort of improve our products and services and in conversation with that, I think that we can retain.
So, since you mentioned about conversations with your consumers, are you focusing more on community building and community conversations kind of? And I'll come to you, Rishabh, because you also have a high-end consumer where you can't really reach out in mass scale. So, coming back to you, Abraham, is that a way?
Yes, definitely. In fact, I was doing a training session for our new managers yesterday at Lonavala, and I was saying I think the focus on customer experience has never been stronger. We are restarting in a new, stronger way our loyalty program and our referral program on the back of it, because I think really building from where you already have strong equity and relationships and growing that base is the strongest, most sustainable way for our kind of category, where experience-led travelers come back and talk about the great experiences they've had and refer like-minded people. Because I think all our instinct when we think about an expensive travel holiday or a holiday or travel experience is instinctively to find out who knows most about that place, right? So if you want to go to Japan and you know your neighbor went to Japan, it may be the first time you talk to that neighbor, but you might actually ask because there is a lot at stake, right? Including peace at home if you have a bad holiday that can be compromised. So you really want to find out. So you might ask that person. And I think that ability to create a community of customers who are loyal, see sort of sustainable virtuous cycle, if you will, of consumption with us, where each travel experience gives them tangible reward points to come back and consume more, and we give them bonus points for referrals and stuff like that, I think is really where we want to build this community on an ongoing basis.
So Rushabh, is that the new way of knowing your consumer and engaging with your consumer rather than chasing them across domains, across websites?
As part of the real estate category that I represent, it's dual. When I say dual, any new project launch, always a big bang ATL campaign, which is print, hoardings. There is a lot of mass media that goes out to build that awareness. Now, whether that's a mass project, as we call it, which is maybe 1 crore and below homes, or you have a project which is a 10 crore or a 20 crore or even a 50 crore project, right? There is a way to announce, because the audience that we specifically target, which is extremely small, like Abraham mentioned that travelers going abroad is small. Imagine 50 crore home buyers, right? That's going to be like a peanut in the entire ocean. So very strong loyalty programs. We build communities. As a brand, we've already started that journey of having our customers, people who booked homes with Rustomjee, building extremely strong communities. Even after projects have been delivered, handed over, societies have been formed, we still engage with them. Because that's the way we can actually get referrals, build on our loyalty programs. I think Gaurav made a very important point about we are too focused on, digital numbers, target, this is the audience size, this is the impression numbers. Now with cookies going out, it's going back maybe 5-10 years, where you actually focus more on that pull marketing, because cookies actually tell you that, this is the guy who has a similar journey to your buyer, you should target him. This is a guy in a similar life stage, you should target him. Now, if all that data is going out, how do I target a person who I don't know, right? So loyalty programs kick in, going back to the creatives, which actually goes back to how many people do qualitative research these days? Nobody. I mean, very few.
In fact, we were just talking, is it going to take us to the old
Yes.
world of limited set of channels, and it'll make our lives a little more easy, less options.
It will be a little more complicated in my view, because we've been living in a world where we've got so much data. We take comfort in the fact that, okay, I know my audience, I know this, I know that. Now I don't know this, I don't know that. I have to figure out stuff. For a creative to be put up online, please do A/B testing is the first thing that I tell my team, that, go ahead, do A/B testing, come back after a week and tell me what works. Now, A/B testing is still valid, but the fact that if we were to do pull marketing, I will have to invest a lot of time, understand my consumer, not just as numbers, but qualitatively what ticks him. What is the motive? For a home buyer, it's a journey where he takes anywhere from 1 week to 3 years to buy a house. Yeah, and to constantly be with him, understand his requirements, and then craft something from a communication perspective is very difficult. For high-end, it becomes even more difficult because they want customized homes. Right, everyone has a different taste platter, a different motive. If I want to go buy some chocolate, I know the other top brand, probably I'll go and buy it. But for homes, it's a very complex decision. Multiple people are involved. For us, targeting the housewife or the wife of the buyer is important. I have to use an Instagram for that. The children are important. I have to use TikTok for that or various other platforms. So the platforms are increasing, and without cookies, I will have to do even more to drive more people to my website, because that is where I'll get my first party data. So it's going to be a broad, or we can say a spray and pray kind of a plan, which will have to action first instead of a sharpshoot plan, which we use right now, that I know my audience, I know what ticks them, I need to do this, and that's done. That's how it's going to evolve. It's not something that we planned for, and as Gaurav said, we are always underprepared. So the moment this happens, even the strategies that we build will have to be extremely agile to kind of adapt to how people are responding, because now you will see people getting irrelevant ads, right? So your costs are going to shoot up. There'll be increased pressure from business.
I was about to say that probably you will ask for bigger budgets, and the CFO should have a larger concern. So
I was just going to mention that it's going to be the other way around. For us marketers, attribution has been our go-to thing to justify the spends and look at ROAS or look at return on investments. It's going to get difficult for us to go to CFOs and then talk to them about, this is the ROAS, this is the channel, this is where we are putting our monies, and that's why our channel strategy and our choice of channel will be slightly more complicated. So these conversations are going to be even more within the four walls of a boardroom.
I fully agree with you. And Rashid, what would you recommend? You've heard about how they are preparing. What do you recommend to the audience and to them in this changing world?
We've recently gone through a massive cultural shift. The way there's a lot of democratization of information, and people today tend to interact with brands like as if they were individuals themselves. They make friends with brand. They make friends with the people on the other side of the brand. If they are then comfortable interacting, that's when there is traction that happens. I'm just going to pull back one step back to the cultural shifts portion. most of the brands that we are dealing with as of right now, it doesn't matter whether they're doing ATL, whether they have a primarily digital agenda in place. Most of the brands we're dealing with are running primary research campaign by campaign, so that they're able to understand the pulse of the people that they actually want to communicate and what interests them, so that that interaction, that point of inflection, the understanding of the brand or the particular service is immediate and there's no ambiguity about what the action needs to be thereafter. So moving forward, as we get into a cookieless world, it is going to become our communication is going to become a lot more broader, but what we say is going to have to matter a lot more, which is going to require understanding our consumers a lot better.
Maybe we can talk about few examples of the campaigns that you would have done using your first-party data. Gaurav, do you want to take up that? Start with.
So the campaigns that I'll not be specific here, but generally speaking, the campaigns that we do with first-party data in our line of business is close to zero. Why? Because we handle nationally critical databases, so we can't. From the campaigns that we do are mostly already in a cookieless world, which is operating with a spray and pray, like you mentioned, which is mostly to do with driving traffic, which is absolute top of the funnel that we speak about. The choices that we have made on the channel strategy or the campaign strategy might be very different for different objectives, but most of it is to build awareness and affinity, and then conversions come through the website that you bring and the messaging that you put up there. So what are the changes that we will make in the future? I don't see too many changes in our line of business, but when it comes to thought-provoking messaging that we can, perhaps those are some of the changes that we're going to make. And in terms of our channel choices, the weights of the money spent based on each of these channels, those are some of the changes that are going to happen. What are we advertising for is the key question that will be answered before every campaign. Are we trying to build affinity? Are we trying to build equity? Are we trying to build recall? Or are we really trying to build business? So these are some of the key questions that will have to be very crucial before a campaign starts. And they might have short-term immediate results, or they might have long-term equity results, is something that we'll be rethinking of.
Campaigns which were focusing so much on lead generation, conversions, do you think those will be less as we move forward?
If this question's to me, I don't think there will be. I don't think there will be any less, but they will be much better. That's something that I can comment on.
I think the cookieless world is going to, at least is my limited understanding of what the implication is being, because we're looking into the future, is that I think low cost, low margin, high volume, high frequency categories of products and services are going to find it more challenging because it is to scale and the margins of error, if you will, are as low as they are. And to his point, we've got used to attribution and a whole lot of things to help us stay within that low margin for acquisition. So to some extent, going back to where I think it's going back full circle, market leaders who have a larger mind share are going to have a natural advantage again. In the cookie-filled world, challenger brands were able to leverage and nibble away, cookie pun intended, easier at leaders' market share. I think that's going to, in some sense, that guerrilla advantage, if you will, is going to be taken away. At least that's my sense of what's going to happen in the short term, at least. And I think, therefore, this thing again of building the brand reputation from a leadership standpoint for what the core product or service stands for, the actual tangible benefits of consumption and ownership, and pride of ownership, depending on the category, like a home, for example, or even a holiday to a large extent, I think is really a lot of what's going to come back into play. And I think to your point on examples of campaigns that I think, at least in our recent experience, we've seen work is we realized that we were largely catering to an older age group, and obviously that's a sustainability challenge. So what we did coming out of the pandemic was actually create a whole set of products aimed at Gen Y, Gen Z, not the typical seat and coach, go to a place, take pictures, get back in the coach kind of holidays, but, pub hopping, nightclubs, that kind of stuff across the world, Brazil, Europe, and so on. And targeted it with really quirky creatives. And I think going to the point on, the power of creative ideas coming back and appealing to that age group, right? This was a very non-traditional Thomas Cook. B, it is a very non-traditional Thomas Cook product. And just putting it out there and leveraging our community, social media reach, again, I think is going to come back into a big way. Facebook, I think, is going to suddenly discover its mojo, because Facebook communities, a lot of which were lying dormant, I think are going to, if you do it right, come back very powerfully. And I think that these campaigns that we did largely on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and stuff like that, targeting younger customers of ours, just help grow, because we obviously created a referral advantage for young people traveling in groups, which they almost always do. And in just the 2 odd years since we emerged out of the pandemic, we've seen the average age of our customers shift down by 10 years, right, from 45 odd to 35 odd, which is closer to the median of India's age in terms of demography, which does 2 things for us. One, obviously brings a whole new set of customers to us, which is very much more in the volume game. B is it's strategically a far more sustainable thing for us as a brand, if you're looking at it from a share price or any other perspective. And I think that's a good example of what I think could work.
Rushabh, how do you leverage your first-party data, and any campaign that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so for us, because we cater to a very small audience, first-party data, which is basically customers who are with us, they've signed up, they have shown interest. And like we were discussing, for us, the key thing is them actually coming to our site. That's the true, I would say, mark of them showing genuine interest. Now, that being said, yes, we've got access to third-party data. We look at, similar audiences, etc. But what we've also started doing is have a broad-based campaign, but then specifically target people who have come directly to us with the motive. We try and understand that and have specific communication built on that. For example, we've got a good project in BKC, right? Now, BKC, you've got people coming in from all parts of the city as their preferred work. Got a lot of complexes there. And, there are people coming in from Borivali, Andheri, and even from South Bombay. We've seen that the traction that we get from an Andheri to BKC is much, much higher. And there, the critical reason is not just about having the commute time being shorter, but also the fact that it's a very congested place, Andheri, and BKC is a little more space. Right now, if I talk that same language with, say, a Borivali guy, he's going to say, I have more space. It becomes an irrelevant campaign or an irrelevant talking point with him. So that is how we are sharpshooting as of now with the data that we've got in-house, where we actually interact with people. I would say it's more phygital in nature, where, initially the interest comes in from the online world. But then when they come to the site, we try and understand them better, because our business does not allow to sell online. It's something that customers want to come, see the sample flat, talk about the project, various financial details, etc., and only then take a decision. So for us, getting that information is, I would say, slightly easier, because they come to our site. We understand that. So it's not just the online first-party data. It's first-party data from me is site and the digital world both, where we see the different creators, what is actually attacking people who have booked with us and people who have just visited us. There are two sets that we kind of look at, and based on that, take a decision in terms of what campaigns work.
I think the intelligence that you will build on the first party data will be much more useful, and the creative or the messaging can be much more relevant with that understanding and the knowledge. I am picking up from what Abraham said about younger audiences, understanding younger audiences. The reaching out to them is even more difficult because you can't, people don't watch television these days. So what is your view in terms of understanding this younger audience? How is first party data going to help us, especially targeting these audiences?
So before I answer that, I'm just going to touch upon one aspect that Rushabh had brought up right now, is that, for example, when you're looking at construction, if you're looking at apartment selling, there is a reliance on understanding similar audiences. Say, for example, if a HNI comes to the website, you would want to get information of similar audiences. And that is something that is going to become a very crucial aspect of advertising in the world as we go forward. Why? Most websites, most applications have analytic systems plugged in on the back end. This tracks how user information is flowing. And I'm not getting into technicalities out here, but it is going to create, it has already created ecosystems where there is already an understanding of logged in user info, where these platforms that are running the analysis is able to understand any individual user by their browser behavior, etc., not using cookies, and to be able to say to a fair degree of certainty what their propensities will be for taking action to particular type of communication with very specific targeting. And now this leads to answering your very specific question out here. As we need to target in the year going forward now, it is going to be very highly dependent on the ecosystems that have been gathering this kind of information at scale. Say, for example, a Google or an Amazon, they understand logged in user behavior and are able to identify browser specific or IP specific. And I have used two ecosystems right now as examples, but there are very many. And the way we will need to then go about advertising and targeting is going to have to understand what it is that we want as an action, or to be able to identify a specific user customer, and to be able to then craft communication to deliver to them using multiple platforms. So it is going to have to become contextual in nature, depending on where we are advertising and what relationship that particular consumer has when they're online with what they see from the advertiser side.
Since you mentioned about Amazon, and I'm coming to you, Gaurav, I don't know, we were speaking about ONDC as a platform. What do you think the role of ONDC, understanding consumers, targeting consumers, will be much better on ONDC?
So, okay, let me take one step back before I answer that question. While ONDC Limited is a representative from there would be the best suited to answer that question. But ONDC is a platform. It's a service that's getting created and it is opening up the network. And by that, I mean, it is unbundling this whole e-commerce experience that we have built by large mega platforms like Flipkart or the Amazons of the world and several others. So it's trying to unbundle every piece. Now, when it comes to advertising, I think the onus will always be on the participants of the network to see what best platforms to advertise. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the journey of Amazon or Flipkart, those have become largely search engines today, right? So if you're searching for information which is to do with commerce, you usually use these platforms. With ONDC scaling, perhaps there is going to be a reality someday that it becomes a large search engine for you to search goods across India, from small stores to large stores. And I think that's the vision that they're on, not only to be a search engine, but to have an alternate commerce ecosystem in India, which is quite open. And the network participants, while they set the regulation and the rules, the ONDC Limited, but the network participants are free to engage and set their margins and set their ship and make choices like who ships their product and so on and so forth. Several decisions that go on in building an e-commerce. So to be specific to your question, the onus of advertising will still lie on the buyer and the seller. On the seller or on the platform. The buyer is free to engage, like his consumer behavior or her consumer behavior won't change. You will still seek out information on large networks. You will still seek out information on the platform. But just to mention this again, ONDC is a platform and of unbundling commerce, like the way it is done in the West and some companies in India. So that's how it's going to work out.
So I'm just going to ask you a question now. So this is going to be largely, if I'm just clarifying, in fact, it is going to be intent-based. Am I correct? For when we are advertising, consumers are going to express various intent depending on where they are, what platforms they're using, and what devices they're using as well. Identifying that, clubbing it with what our brands or what our products stand for, matching that is going to be the kind of sweet spot where advertising will actually likely have effect. Is that, just wanted to...
Yeah, absolutely. So like your journey today, it won't be any different because we won't change as human beings so fast. If you're searching for your perfect pair of shoes, perhaps you will Google it out and then you would go to a network to search for the pricing. You'll look at 2-3 different platforms for the best price that offers. And ONDC will be one of those platforms, other platforms that you would search out the pricing, and perhaps from a retailer who might be just 10 meters away from your building or 100 meters away from your building, perhaps that. So it's going to be, rather than a very large...
I wanted to specify that or ask you a question on a similar lines. Is it going to be a threat to Google or a competition to Google in terms of search engine?
It's great media headlines, but I don't think... I'm in the right place to comment whether it's going to be a threat or not, but I think the intentions are in the right place. So let's see an alternate e-commerce or commerce platform appear out of India. One more digital infrastructure that India can offer to the world, just like how UPI and some of the other infrastructures that are getting built.
Sorry, it was a little off the track. So I think we can probably open up. I tried asking questions which might be relevant for the audience, but in case we missed out and you have any specific question you want to ask the panel, please. Hi,
this is Sanjay. I think that ONDC is a platform just like has been developed, and maybe going forward it is like UPI has just changed the India's banking system. I think that it is a new concept. What is your thought on that? T-Choksi is driving in a...
Sorry, I touched on a wrong topic.
So I'll plug in my brand first and then I will go from there. What Protean does is offer the gateway services. We are the technology service providers to ONDC Limited, and we run the gateway for ONDC discovery. Just how a UPI NPCI runs UPI, and then there are value-added players building UPI systems like your Google Pay and the Phone Pays of the world. Yeah. So while I may again not be the right representative from ONDC commenting on it, but I think ONDC is an attempt to reimagine how commerce can happen in open networks in a fashion where participants find it easy to come on a platform and sell, not governed by rules or principles which large tech offers. And it is an opportunity for India as a nation to create a shining example of another infrastructure that they have. While payments has seen such a revolution with UPI, commerce, agri, education, there are many such open digital ecosystems in the works which might create a revolution going forward. In fact, if I take a step back, the recently concluded G20 discussion, digital infrastructure was one of the hottest topic, and it became a part of the memorandum that got signed. So we are all looking forward and cheering for ONDC and hope it gains the success on how UPI has really shown the way.
Hi, this is Sudhakar Malpe. With Moderator from Deloitte, it is an excellent, meet. In fact, this question is for Rushabh as well as to Mr. Thomas. Abraham, sharpshoot plan. How does it work for both of you? Thank you.
The political answer is very well. But, in the real world, you may try to sharpshoot as much as we want. Obviously, that plan is much better than the spray and pray, because there at least we've narrowed down the audience. Otherwise, if I just look at home buyers in Mumbai, 5 lakh people looking for homes. But if I look at home buyers looking for a home in a Prabhadevi, in a BKC, with a budget of XYZ, then I can kind of narrow it down to a very, very small audience and then target, which right now is easy with the help of cookies. The moment we take that out, yes, I can still figure out what's the audience size for a particular market, but then targeting them will be a little bit of a challenge for me without the cookies, because then I have to actually spend more in more mediums. So right now I know that with a Facebook, with a Google, with maybe 2-3 more channels, I can achieve that objective. Going forward, if I am not able to do that, or if I don't have that intelligence with me, then I will end up using maybe 10 channels to get a similar output. And that's where, like, Gaurav also mentioned, we'll have to have a chat with the CFO that it's going out of hand, but that's the way it's going to work.
I think we've got used to extend the plastic and how we got used to it analogy. We've got used to being stalked and being chased, and therefore turning around and saying, okay, now I'll buy it because somebody was always following you anyway. I think now we're going to go back to in some sense, the customer having the power to initiate the conversation. So intent will become key, even to the search engine platform, going back. I think the customer demonstrating the intent will be key, which then goes back to the question of when this customer intends to consume a product or service, what are the names he thinks of, right? If he thinks of a name at all. The other thing is about, intent in terms of specific, and just staying with the holiday category. If I'm sharpshooting would be if somebody's searching for a specific destination, right? I then know very clearly that or in my case, for example, foreign exchange for a particular destination. There's no question. The intent's very clear. And the other way to do it, I think, is to start looking at relationships and partnerships. That's the other way in a cookieless world that I think going forward, and maybe we could have talked about that, or we should talk about it, is I think that's the other way marketers will start looking at the way to reach like-minded customers, is to build partnerships with like-minded brands in complementary but not competing categories, right? For example, lifestyle, high-value lifestyle products for real estate and so on. Even for travel, I think that's good, right? For example, I could tie up with a brand like Samsonite. The kind of person who buys an expensive 10,000 rupee suitcase is not buying it to keep it at home. He is buying it to travel, right? So I think a lot of that way of thinking, which I think we had temporarily forgotten, I think marketers will have to start rethinking. And that's really where the power of brands come in, because brands associate typically with brands that they think add credibility or resonance with their own brand, right? You will not find credible brands partnering easily with brands they don't resonate with because they think there might be jeopardy there. So I think to a large extent, all this goes back to the building strong brands, constantly adding value, sustainability, leadership in categories, which then lead intent, customer having the power, then, that brand starts leveraging all those powers back again. I don't know if that answers your question, long answer.
So thank you so much for the enriching discussion, and I hope we've got the answers to the questions that you had in your head. Thank you so much for being so patient.
Thank you for being a great coordinator. I think you set the tone for the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting.